end is worse for them than the beginning. Look at verse 21. For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than to have known to turn from the holy commandment delivered to them. But it has happened to them according to the true proverb, and that's Proverbs 26. A dog returns to his own vomit, and the sow having washed to her wallowing in the mire. You got to be careful that you don't go back to the pig pen by having a divided mind. That's Jonah's problem. He's back being hateful again. You were a liar before you came into the body of Christ, into the Lord's church. You practice lying. And then 40 days or less after you come into the Lord's church, you're doing the same thing again. You return to the pig pen. You return to the pig pen. And remember we talked about, the stuff about repenting? How it's as if you haven't even repented. And we talked about that last week. Yes. How people in the church sometimes, they go back and do the same thing that they done got up and said they repented about, and they doing the same thing. It's just that you ain't repented at all. You haven't repented at all. You just got a mistake. You follow what I'm saying? We covered that. Jonah here has he's returned. He values his reputation more than he does God. And what it is, in short, brothers and sisters, Jonah's complaint against God's goodness reveals his misplaced, misguided, ungodly, and deep-seated value. He was just wrong. Heading in the wrong direction once again. You follow what I'm saying? We set up in the Lord's church, and we say that we're children of God, and yet we think wrong. Though we act good outwardly, it's as if we ain't changed at all. And some folk, I tell you, their hats hung in. They doing some of the same things that they were hung up on 30 years ago. Ain't grown a bit. Let's look a little further here. God has something to say here about the situation. You see, God had a part in this conversation as well, in this prayer talk as well. Now, look at verses 4 through 9. I'm not going to reread that, but you can look at that. But God sends a plan, and the plan reveals Jonah's divided heart. Our second point is Jonah's divided heart. He had a divided heart. You ever met what we call a hardened criminal? You ever met a hardened criminal? Now, Bob, I know y'all have already. Johnny, I know you have too. Whoever else working in the system. You ever met a hardened criminal? Now, here's the thing. You may hear of their activities, what they've done. They're brutal people. They kill people and things like that. Cold-hearted folk. I think somebody talks to the person's mother or father. So, he was just a good boy growing up. Just nice in the community, did things for the neighbors, and just was nice. We got straight A's and all of that. Just downright good individual. How can a person demonstrate such radical personality? He was good all this time, and then here he did all this brutal stuff. What is it? It's a divided heart. He has a divided heart. Divided heart. Up here. Men, fathers, I don't mean any harm, but I ask a rhetorical question. You have a divided heart. Outwardly you do A, B, C, looks right, good, and all of that. But inside, something else. There are a lot of fathers that got divided hearts. Right now. They're doing good here, A, B, C, but then over here, different person. Think about that. Here. Back in 2007, there was a man who was a mass murderer who was apprehended in part of the country. And the person that he most deceived was his wife. She had no idea that her husband was so gentle. Had brutally murdered a number of women. No idea. Divided heart. Now, while Jonah is not an axe murderer, Jonah also had a divided heart. Yes, he did. Let me show you how. On one hand, he is God's spokesperson. He is God's messenger. To who? To Nineveh. On one hand, he's that. But on the other hand, he's full of hatred and contempt. And God knew it. See, God knows all things. God knew it. And so God uses a plan to show Jonah his own heart. He uses the plan. Sometimes God has to show us what kind of heart we have. Time's up. If you're honest and sincere, he shows it to you. You ought to want to do what's right. Now look a little further here. This plan. See, as we read about this plan, we're reminded again of God's sovereign rule over nature. Remember in chapter 1 and verse 4, how God